Hello, I am Michael, the editor of this publication. Today is Friday, February 11, Greenwich Mean Time. Anarchists do not decide Canada's public policy or control Canada's borders. We do, say the voters. Canadians control Canada's borders, not foreign-funded anarchists in a hybrid war. Persons who are not anarchists should now go home. Those who remain as part of the siege against Canada, and I'm referring to the various border crossings that have been blocked and the siege upon the capital of Canada, Ottawa. Those who remain should be arrested and their equipment, vehicles, etc. confiscated, seized and held by the court until a decision is made as to what to do with their weapons. There are no measures that go too far in removing the anarchists from the streets of Canada and imprisoning them, or deporting them if that is applicable. The persons and machinery blocking the border crossings between Canada and the USA are not part of peaceful protests. They are anarchists and criminals at best, using heavy equipment to attack Canadian society. They cause a breach of the peace and cause a violation of Canadian sovereignty. Canadians control Canada's borders, not foreign-funded anarchists. Canadian electors have voted for and elected a domestic government at a time when the pandemic was raging. That election was a plebiscite on how the government was doing in its management of the pandemic. Canadians essentially approved sufficiently that pandemic management to reinstate the government in a parliamentary minority. Therefore, the anarchists who have sought to usurp Canada's duly elected public policy makers while supporting or being supported by foreign funding are an enemy of Canada and an enemy of the Canadian voter and an enemy of Canadian democracy. Those who are not an enemy of Canada should go home now. The requests of the legitimate protesters have been heard, and as you have heard the Prime Minister say, they are denied. The United States also has a vaccine mandate for truckers. Ending Canada's mandate would not change anything. You still need to be vaccinated to cross the border. And there's a good reason for that. It's to mitigate the community spread of disease. And you know which disease we're talking about. The request to prevent businesses and institutions which assemble groups of people from mandating vaccines and disease spread mitigation during these assemblies has also been denied. That's the right of any company or institution, including schools, the post office, the military, police, and healthcare groups and so on. They have the right to determine that certain measures are required, reasonable measures like getting vaccinated or wearing a mask, to protect each other. Now, I work in the healthcare field, and I have for a very long time, and I've worked all over the world. I've worked in all continents besides Antarctica. And we've always worn masks at appropriate times when infection needs to be prevented. Infectious diseases need to be stopped. For example, Ebola in Africa. You have no idea what kind of measures have to be taken, but you better practice. Practice now on COVID-19 because worse pathogens are coming. Hospitalizations in Canada are now extremely high, and until more beds are created in Canadian hospitals and facilities are prepared for an increase in the number of deaths, mitigation mandates should not be just randomly discarded because you don't like them. I don't like the pandemic either. I work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2.5 years now. Canada is currently in conflict with Russia, having sent Canadian troops and weapons to the Russian border in the Ukraine. Be that right or wrong, the Freedom Convoy 2022 is substantially funded by malign actors of the Russian Federation, according to many of our reliable sources. This puts the Freedom Convoy into the class of a hybrid war weapon. Have you watched the Russian news lately? They're behind you all the way. They are looking for a destabilized Canada and a destabilized the United States, a destabilized New Zealand, Australia, and Britain. Similarly, right-wing entities in the United States, which could and should be identified as terrorist groups, are also financially supporting the anarchists in Canada and striving to create similar anarchistic activities in the United States. This editorial position is that these anarchists must be arrested and held for trial without bail. They are seditious, they are treasonous, and they are weaponized as part of a hybrid war against the West by the Russian Federation. Russian Federation has its own problems. It's surrounded by NATO forces, it's struggling, and it's doing whatever it thinks it needs to do in a hybrid war against the West. And that is a pretty big enemy for them. However, if you agree with this side or that side, it matters not. This is about Canada. I'm a Canadian. I'm a Canadian voter. And believe me, that can be difficult at times because I travel all around the world and I've voted from at least 5 different other countries to get my vote through in Canada, and it's a precious thing. Don't you dare usurp that vote. You anarchists do not make public policy. We're including in our article a message from the leader of the NDP. I suggest you listen to what that gentleman has to say. His words are wise and they are sufficient. Thank you.